Hey, how's everybody doing today? Hotep. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer. We are back. It is Friday, April 4th, 2017, and we are live. We should be broadcasting on Facebook Live also. So how's everybody doing? We made it through another week. Today is almost day 200. I think it's day 200, somewhere around there, the Donald Trump regime. But today, I did a broadcast last night for the African History Network show, and we dealt with Colin Kaepernick. And you have some activists who are calling for economic boycott of the NFL until Colin Kaepernick is signed. So we're going to talk about that some right now, because the broadcast was interrupted last night. So we'll talk about that some right now. Very interesting. And it's interesting the whole what's been developing over the past few days surrounding Colin Kaepernick as well. Okay, former San Francisco 49ers quarterback. And, I've talked about Colin Kaepernick in the past. Okay, so we're broadcasting on Facebook Live, our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Can everybody hear me on Facebook? Want to make sure everybody can hear me. Okay, and we're going to deal with that today. All right. And then also we'll do an overview of an online course that I teach called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. It's a 12-hour, 6-week online course that I teach normally on Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're actually doing a session this evening, 7 p.m. Okay, so you can register for the online course and join us for the class. All right. Okay, so you have a couple of activists out of Los Angeles. Okay, a couple of activists out of Los Angeles, Najee Ali and Pastor K.W. Tullos. Okay, Tulloss. Okay, now Najee Ali is the CEO of Project Islamic Hope. Project Islamic Hope. And Pastor K.W. Tullos is the Western Regional Director of the National Action Network LA chapter. Okay, he's also the pastor of Weller Street Baptist Church. Now, National Action Network is Reverend Al Sharpton's organization. Okay, and they're calling for a boycott of the NFL, National Football League, until Colin Kaepernick, former quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, is signed to an NFL team. So Colin Kaepernick left the San Francisco 49ers. He's been looking for another quarterback spot, hasn't found one. You've had people who've come out and said he's purposely being blackballed by the NFL because of his stance against the national anthem. Now, I've talked about this a lot in the past, in Colin Kaepernick's protests against police brutality, against the oppression of African Americans, etc. And he's been doing all this by first sitting during the national anthem at the football games, okay, and then by taking a knee, okay. So this brought about a whole lot of backlash against him, and people saying he was unpatriotic. You had Donald Trump coming out against him when Donald Trump was running for president. You had Bill O'Reilly. You had people at the games booing him, etc. But a lot of people did not really take the time to really listen to what Colin Kaepernick was saying to understand his protests. Number one. Number two, a lot of people have not really researched the history of the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner, written September 13th, 1814, during the War of 1812 by a white supremacist slave owner named Francis Scott Key. So if we go back and we look at the original article, this was probably the first article on Colin Kaepernick's protests. Okay. This article was written by Steve Wyche, W-Y-C-H-E, Steve Wyche for NFL.com. Okay. And this was August 27th, 2016. This was the day after the second preseason game of the 2016-2017 football season. This was during the preseason, okay? And Colin Kaepernick took a knee in this game. He sat on the bench in this game, and he did it in the previous game, but it wasn't noticed till this particular game, okay? It was on a Friday night. They were playing the San Francisco 49ers were playing against the Green Bay Packers. This was August 26, 2017, all right? So he was asked at a press conference after the game, he was asked, well, why were you sitting on the bench while, your team was standing up for the national anthem? He said, quote, I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses Black people and people of color. Okay. He went on to say, to me, this is bigger than football, and it's bigger, and it would be selfish of me on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder. Okay. So what he was talking about was he was taking a stand against the national anthem to protest the oppression of African Americans and people of color by police misconduct, fighting against white supremacy, etc. Okay. Now, if you go and look further into the article, he says that this is not something I'm going to run by anybody. I'm not going to, he said, I'm not looking for approval. I have to stand up for people that are oppressed. If they take football away, my endorsements from me, I know that I stood up for what is right. Okay. And he said, he goes on to say that after months of witnessing some of the civil unrest in the U.S., he decided to be more active and involved in the rights for Black people. And he talks about, fighting for people of color also. Okay. So a lot of people ask the question, well, what is he protesting against? Things like this. I know Tommy Lauren asked that question when she was interviewed by Trevor Noah. Okay. So there were numerous interviews where he talked about this. So you're going to have a lot of people come out against him. And we know that all the owners of the NFL teams, there are 33 NFL teams, if I remember correctly, all the owners of the NFL teams are white men, most of them multimillionaires, if not billionaires. A lot of them are white supremacists. Okay. So it appears that there is a fear that if Colin Kaepernick gets on the team, then he will educate some of the other players on the team, and then you'll have a revolt. If we look at now that first article, that was from NFL.com, okay, and that was the article by Steve Wyche from August 27th, 2016. And Steve Wyche was basically the one who broke this story. Okay, that was 1 year ago. This month, 1 year ago. Okay, Colin Kaepernick explains why he sat during national anthem. Okay. And then there were other interviews where he explained more. August 31st, 2016, you have a big article from bleacherreport.com, bleacherreport.com, BLEACHER. I'm giving you some background information on this because a lot of people don't really know the nuts and bolts of the background on this. Okay. They hear bits and pieces. I actually did a presentation September of 2016 dealing with Colin Kaepernick and his protests. Okay, that was part of a lecture that I did. This article from Bleacher Report called Mike Freeman's 10-point stance, Kaepernick anger intense in NFL front offices. Mike Freeman's 10-point stance, Kaepernick anger intense in NFL front offices. So in this article, Mike Freeman, who writes for the Bleacher Report, he talked about how, now this is a year ago. This came out August 31st, 2016. He talked about how he interviewed the executives of 7 NFL teams, okay? And he talked about how these guys had a hatred for Colin Kaepernick. Now, these were all white men. He talked about how they had a hatred for Colin Kaepernick. Okay. He says all 7 estimated 90 to 95% of NFL front offices felt the same way they did. Okay. Let me back up. He said across NFL front offices, there are team officials who are not offended and even embrace the controversial position of Colin Kaepernick. They are out there. Statistically, they have to be, but they are keeping a low profile. They seem to be far outnumbered by the members of NFL front offices who despise him, truly, truly hate him. Now, this was a year ago. This was August 31st, 2016. The protest hadn't even intensified yet because you're going to have other players of other teams who join in the protest. It hadn't even intensified yet. Okay? People really have to understand this. The first article on Colin Kaepernick's protest was August 27th, 2016. Okay? 4 days later, Mike Freeman interviews 7 heads of the NFL teams, and they talk about how much they hate him because of his protests that they found out about 4 days before. This is the intense hatred at this a year ago. Okay, it's multiplied since then. So people have to really understand this. You had so they said they seem to be far outnumbered by the members of NFL front offices who despise him, truly, truly hate him. You have one front office executive who said, quote, "I don't want him anywhere near my team. He's a traitor. I don't want him anywhere near my team. He's a traitor." This was 4 days after Kaepernick's protest was exposed. Now, Mike Freeman goes on to say he wasn't alone in the anger directed towards Colin Kaepernick. In interviews with 7 team executives, each one of them said he didn't want Kaepernick on his team. Okay, this is from August 31st, 2016. This is far from scientific, but I believe this is likely the feeling among many front office executives. Not all, but many. So Mike Freeman goes on to say, all 7 estimated 90 to 95%, all 7 of the executives of the front offices of these 7 NFL teams he interviewed, right? He said all 7 of these executives estimated that 90 to 95% of NFL front offices felt the very same way that they did. One executive said he hasn't seen this much collective dislike, okay, among front office members regarding a player since Ray Caruth. And Ray Caruth is still now this was a football player who's still in prison today for plotting to murder his pregnant girlfriend, Ray Caruth. He said, now Colin Kaepernick didn't kill anybody. He didn't threaten to kill anybody. He didn't intimate he wanted to kill anybody. He didn't plan to kill anybody. And they have this much hatred for a guy who's protesting against the oppression of African Americans and people of color by protesting against the national anthem. So what's interesting, and shout out to everybody watching us on Facebook. How you all doing? Go ahead and post your Facebook comments, okay? Go ahead and post your comments here, all right? And we're broadcasting also on we're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. Hey, everybody watching us on Facebook, share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. Okay, we're talking about the NFL boycott that has been announced by some activists out of some civil rights activists out of LA, protesting against the NFL until Colin Kaepernick is picked up by a team. I'm giving some historical background information on Colin Kaepernick's protest and the backlash against Colin Kaepernick also, because I know a lot of people don't know a lot of this background information. So in this article from August 31st, 2016, 1 year ago, written by Mike Freeman for BleacherReport.com, Mike Freeman's 10-point stance, Kaepernick anger intense in NFL front offices. Mike Freeman goes on to say, personally, I think the dislike of Kaepernick is inappropriate and un-American. I find it ironic that citizens who live in a country whose existence is based on dissent, criticize someone who expresses dissent. Okay, so Kaepernick was expressing his First Amendment rights. Number one, expressing his First Amendment rights. He wasn't calling people names. Also, he said in numerous interviews, he said that he was not against the military. He was not against the troops or anything like that. Okay. He made it clear what he was protesting against. All right. And he also said, now this is something that a lot of the people who gave Kaepernick backlash, this is something they didn't talk about. He also said, when the flag represents what it's supposed to represent and represents everybody equally, he said something to that effect. He said, I'll stand up for the flag. So instead of people saying, well, wait a second, how can we work with Colin Kaepernick to fight against white supremacy and racism, to fight against oppression and things like this? They wanted to suppress the messenger of the suppression. They wanted to shut down the messenger of the suppression. Okay. Instead of them saying, well, wait a second, how can we work with him to bring about an end to police misconduct, the unarmed killing of the unjust killing of African Americans and people of color? Okay. How can we work with him and other organizations to bring about an end to this? No, they just want to silence him and shut him down. Okay. You had one other team executive who said he has no respect for our country. F that guy. He has no respect for our country. F that guy. Another team executive said, if an owner asked him to sign Colin Kaepernick, he will consider resigning from that team rather than signing Colin Kaepernick. Okay. So you have to really understand what's at play here. Now, it's important to understand this timeline. This article is from August 31st, 2016. This was the type of hatred towards Colin Kaepernick 4 days into his protests. This article is not from yesterday. This article is from a year ago. This was the type of hatred towards Kaepernick 4 days into his protests. Okay, this is from BleacherReport.com. Now, when we look at, and how's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay. Now, are we still we should be still broadcasting on Facebook. Hope everything's good. All right. Okay. Can everybody hear me on Facebook? All right, because I'm monitoring on my smartphone, and for some reason the screen is black, but maybe that's just my phone. Okay, now, so when we look at the civil rights activists out of Los Angeles who have announced the economic boycott, I wanted to give you that background information, okay? And then I'm going to give you a little history about the Star Spangled Banner also, written by Francis Scott Key, a white supremacist slave owner as well. Najee Ali and Pastor K.W. Tullos, okay, have announced that they're calling for a boycott of the NFL until former San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick is signed to an NFL team. Okay. Protests are also planned outside of game facilities of the LA Rams. Okay. And the LA Chargers protesting their preseason games. All right. Now, according to a press release that was sent out, and EUR Web picked up this press release. Also, blackamericaweb.com has an article about this as well on my smartphone, but I can see your comments, but I'm monitoring on Facebook on my computer as well. According to the press release, Here's what the press release says. Quote, there is no doubt that Kaepernick is being blackballed by NFL owners for exercising his First Amendment right in a nonviolent, peaceful statement. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't threaten to kill anybody. He didn't slap his wife or girlfriend, anything like this. He didn't rape anybody, anything like this. Kaepernick was trying to draw attention to racial profiling, police abuse, and the disproportionate amount of people of color being killed unjustly by law enforcement nationally. Okay, so you would think that a lot of people who are veterans who fought for this country, you would think they would want to fight for this and fight for the equal treatment of people and things like this, right? The press release goes on to say the NFL is a form of modern day plantation. The NFL is a form of the modern day plantation. Most of the players are black and the ownership is all white. They're treating Colin Kaepernick like a runaway slave, making him an example so other players can get the message. Do not get too uppity or we will blackball you. Do not get too uppity or we will blackball you. The parallels are very much like slavery, except the players are, the parallels are very much like slavery, except the players are $1 million slaves under contract who have made billions for the NFL. Okay. Now, if you look at the article about Richard Sherman, his recent statements, article from NBCsports.com, August 2nd, 2017, just 2 days ago, a couple of days ago. Richard Sherman said basically that he said it's not about football or color. It's about, quote, boy, stay in your place. Boy, stay in your place. Richard Sherman said not a lot of guys are willing to step out there. So the guys not speaking up for him, referring to the football players not speaking up for him. So the guys not speaking up for him are doing him a disservice. There should be a lot more guys saying something. Most guys are like, I don't want my job to end up the same way. Okay. Which falls in line with what I've been saying all along. You have a lot of players who are afraid that they're going to be sidelined, they're going to be blackballed, etc. Okay. So you have a lot who are not stepping up. And you have team owners who are sending messages to them that you're going to be punished if you protest like Colin Kaepernick, right? Now, my thing would be, well, wait a second. The NFL is like 70, 80% African American. Wouldn't you want and a lot of these stadiums are like in, inner cities, things like this. Wouldn't you want the police to stop the unjust killing of African Americans? Wouldn't that make your city better? Wouldn't that make Baltimore better? Wouldn't that make Cleveland better? Wouldn't that make Detroit better? Now what's interesting is that if you look at the NBA, right? With the NBA, they moved in 2016, the NBA moved the All-Star game from North Carolina to another state, protesting against the North Carolina transgender bathroom bill. When has the NFL moved a game because police were killing too many African Americans in the city? Did they move any games from Cleveland because Tamir Rice was shot and killed, executed by the police, or because John Crawford III in Ohio was shot and killed by the police in the Walmart, where he picked up a rifle, an air rifle off the shelf in an open carry state? Ohio is an open carry state, which means it was legal for him to, even if it was a real rifle, it was legal for him to have that rifle in that store because it's an open carry state. Did they move any games in? Did they move any games when Eric Garner was killed or or when Sandra Bland was killed. But the NBA will move the All-Star game over a bill impeding the right of transgendered people to use the toilet of their choice. And a lot of people who are transgender, if they don't say anything, you won't even know it. There's nobody standing at the bathroom door patting them down, anything like that. A lot of them, if they don't say anything, you won't even know they're transgender. So what's the big deal? So when we look at this press release, and once again, how's everybody doing on Facebook? We'll come to your comments in just a minute here. Okay. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay. All right. So when we look at this press release, everybody's doing all right. Okay. So the press release goes on to say, African Americans, Latinos, and anyone who believes in social justice should boycott all things NFL. African Americans, Latinos, and anyone who believes in social justice should boycott all things NFL. So all the white people who are out protesting with Black Lives Matter, you should protest against the NFL also. Okay. All the Bernie Sanders support, all the white Bernie Sanders supporters talking about you want equality and all this stuff. Okay. You should protest against the NFL for them blackballing Colin Kaepernick. All the white women who date black men, you should protest against the NFL for blackballing Colin Kaepernick. All the white men who date black women, you should protest against the NFL for blackballing Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick stood up for all people of color when he didn't have to and could lose millions in danger. He has led his team to a Super Bowl appearance and has enough money and fame to deal with the police if he had to. It's African Americans and Latinos who continue to be in danger. It's African Americans and Latinos who continue to be in danger of being unjustly killed by police. It's our sons and daughters. Kaepernick realized that and took a knee for us and used his platform to highlight those facts nationally. Use that platform to highlight those facts nationally. Okay. All right. So Portia said Bernie Sanders is real talk. Bernie has some good points. I didn't just find out about Bernie Sanders in 2015 when he ran for president. I've known about Bernie Sanders for years. So some of his policies ain't make a whole lot of sense when it came to how you pay for him. But Bernie Sanders, I think Bernie's a good guy. He just he had an African American woman problem, but I think the root.com had an article about that. But Bernie's a good guy. So the article goes on to say in the press release, now it's our turn to stand on his behalf, on Colin Kaepernick's behalf. Now it's our turn to stand on Colin Kaepernick's behalf. The NFL could care less about players' First Amendment rights, social justice, human rights, or the fact that African Americans and Latinos continue to be killed by police nationwide. Kaepernick's teammates voted him most inspirational, the Lynn Eshmont Award, demonstrating what his teammates thought of his stance and character. And this is what Najee Ali, who's the CEO of Project Islamic Hope, said. Okay. And this was in their press release. It goes on to say, Reverend K.W. Tullos, Western Regional Director of the National Action Network LA chapter, said the National Action Network stands in support of Kaepernick and will lead a statewide boycott of the NFL, along with encouraging others not to attend an LA Rams, LA Chargers, or Oakland Raiders game until Colin Kaepernick is signed to an NFL team. Now, the two civil rights activists say the coalition's first NFL preseason protest will be Saturday, August 12th. Saturday, August 12th, at 3 p.m. at 39th and Figueroa Street outside of the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, where the LA Rams will play their home schedule during the 2017 NFL season. Okay. During the 2017 NFL season. So they're going to start August 12th. All right. And those, around the country, people can join in the protest. You can tweet about it. You can post on social media about it. Don't watch the games. Don't buy any paraphernalia. Don't buy any jerseys. Anything like don't buy any the jerseys. Don't buy any NFL merchandise, unless it's Colin Kaepernick NFL merchandise. Other than that, don't even buy that. But the next step would be for organizations, and I think colorchange.org may be involved in something like this. The next step is to go after the advertisers who advertise during the NFL games. Go after the advertisers, go after the corporations. When you see a stadium and it has the name of a corporation like the Staples Center or something like that, corporations pay that team millions of dollars each year for branding to have their name put on that stadium. Okay. So the next step would be to do like they did. If you look at Bill O'Reilly, right, who hosted the O'Reilly Factor on Fox News. The reason why Bill O'Reilly is off the air is not because Fox News came to a realization that sexual harassment was wrong. It's not because they had a moral epiphany. It's because 80 advertisers pulled their ads from his TV show, The O'Reilly Factor, and the show was no longer profitable. And there was so much pressure on them that they fired him. Okay. Well, who put the pressure on them? Organizations like colorofchange.org. Color of Change. And Color of Change was at the forefront of contacting advertisers. Number one, they collected about 350,000 signatures on an online petition. Okay. Also, they contacted advertisers and put pressure on advertisers to withdraw economic support from the O'Reilly Factor TV show. If you look at the article from Huffington Post Black Voices, this Black org helped oust Bill O'Reilly by hitting Fox where it hurts. This Black org helped oust Bill O'Reilly by hitting Fox where it hurts. Okay. So this article from Huffington Post Black Voices, and we'll post a link here on the thread of the broadcast here on Facebook. This is about the involvement of colorofchange.org in the protests against Bill O'Reilly. Now, Color Change had a protest against Bill O'Reilly show, The O'Reilly Factor, for 2 years. Their protest did not start when the New York Times article came out a few weeks before Bill O'Reilly was fired. Their protest started 2 years. About this in the article. Their protest picked up steam when Bill O'Reilly went after Auntie Maxine Waters, and he said that her hair looked like a James Brown wig, and he couldn't hear anything she was saying. Their protest picked up then. Then when the bombshell article from the New York Times came out and talked about how Fox News and Bill O'Reilly had paid $13 million to, I think it was 5 different women, to settle sexual harassment lawsuits, then the support exploded. Okay, and you know what happened? Approximately 80 advertisers pulled advertising dollars from the number one, the top rated cable news show in the country, and he had the number one rated cable news show for about 15 years. And he got fired. But read this article. This is what happens when organizations are backed by people. happened in 1955 or 1956 or 1963 or 1964 or 1965. This happened last year. I mean, sorry, this happened this year. This happened in 2017. Okay. So this is an example of economic withdrawal strategies. This is an example of economic withdrawal strategies. All right. So, and very quickly here, when you look at how's everybody doing, I know people tuning in at different times. Excel Clan said time to buy black. Windows said better leave my sister Auntie Maxine alone. Riri said I'm looking into developing my own football leagues and basketball and other professional sports leagues. Portia said, but she is reclaiming her time. Oh yeah, she's Maxine Waters is very, very popular. Maxine Waters is very, very popular. All right. For those just joining us, hey, I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. We're talking about the protest and economic boycott that has been announced by activists out of LA, Najee Ali of Project Islamic Hope, and Pastor K.W. Tullos of the National Action Network LA chapter. And he's also pastor of Weller Street Baptist Church. And their economic boycott of the NFL is going to start August 12th. Okay, Saturday, August 12th at the preseason game. All right. And this is something people can do across the country. I know their petitions. I have to check colorchange.org, see if they have a petition. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Okay. Also, yeah, we just posted a link here about our online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. It's a 12-hour, 6-week online course that I teach. We normally do it on Fridays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're doing one today. We're doing another installment today, and we do it thousands of years of history. As soon as you register, you can watch the first 4 sessions, and then we also have 12 hours of bonus content also for you to watch. So you can we posted the link there, so register here. If you need me to post it again, let me know. We'll post that because I'm going to do a quick overview of that for you as well. The course is only $40. You can watch it over and over again. So if you miss anything, you can go back and watch it over and over again. So we deal with a lot of information. And some of the stuff we talk about here, we deal with in the course. So Kaepernick was protesting against the national anthem, right? He was protesting against the national anthem. A lot of people don't know the history of the national anthem. So the national anthem was written by Francis Scott Key, okay, who was an attorney, and he was a slave owner, all right? And he came from a slave-owning family, Francis Scott Key. This is he wrote it September 13th, 1814, during the War of 1812. And it was originally a poem called The Defense of Fort McHenry, okay? The Defense of Fort McHenry. And he wrote it after witnessing an attack on Fort McHenry during the War of 1812. So the U.S. once again is fighting against Great Britain. And it was originally a poem, and then it's going to be music is going to be added to it later that year, and it's going to be called the Star Spangled Banner. Okay. It's not until 1931 that it actually becomes the national anthem. It's not until 1931 that it actually becomes the national anthem. Okay. So you had some people who said, well, it's the third stanza of the Star Spangled Banner that's really the problem. Okay. Where in the third stanza, they talk about no refuge could save the hireling and slave. Okay, there and where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country should leave us no more? Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps, pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. And the star-spangled banner in triumph doth wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. Okay. Well, you have to understand that during the American Revolutionary, during the War of 1812, the U.S. was still enslaving African people while they're fighting against Great Britain, once again, for their freedom. And you're going to have about 6,000 enslaved Africans who go over to the British side and fight, and they're going to fight for the British, okay, against the U.S. You're going to have a group of them called the Colonial Marines. And at the end of the War of 1812, the U.S. demanded that Great Britain return back to them the 6,000 approximately runaway slaves. Great Britain refused to do this. But when you look at Francis Scott Key, this was a white supremacist racist who felt that African people were mentally inferior, who profited off of the slave trade. If you look at the article from Smithsonian.com, which is the official website of the Smithsonian Institute, name of this article is "Where's the Debate on Francis Scott Key's Slaveholding Legacy?" Where's the debate on Francis Scott Key's slaveholding legacy? During his lifetime, abolitionists ridiculed Francis Scott Key's words, sneering that America was more like the land of the free and home of the oppressed. Well, Colin Kaepernick was standing up against the oppression of people of color, and he saw the national anthem as a symbol of that. So if you look at this article, it says in 1814, Francis Scott Key was a slaveholding lawyer from an old Maryland plantation family who, thanks to a system of human bondage, had grown rich and powerful. When he wrote the poem that would in 1931 become the national anthem, because it did not become the national anthem till 1931, okay, and proclaim our nation, quote, the land of the free, end quote, like Thomas Jefferson, Francis Scott Key not only profited from slaves, he harbored racist conceptions of American citizenship and human potential. Africans in America, he said, Francis Scott Key said, were, quote, a distinct and inferior race of people, which all experience proves to be the greatest evil that afflicts a community, end quote. This is what Francis Scott Key, who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, said. He said, in referring to Africans in America, and African people are the original Americans. I will deal with this shortly because I'll give you an overview of the online course that I teach where we deal with this type of information. This is why, and this go around of the class is actually 7 weeks because I put in an additional week. Okay, it's actually it's actually 7 weeks. All right. This is some of the type of information we deal with here. This is why, see, the third stanza was taken out of the when they sing the Star-Spangled Banner, like at games and things like this, they don't sing the third stanza. My contention is not the third stanza is the problem. It's the entire song is the problem. It's a white supremacist song. So personally, I think you need a new national anthem that reflects the whole of America as opposed to just white supremacy. I think you need a new national anthem. Okay. Francis Scott Key, who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner in referring to Africans in America, African Americans, and African people are the original Americans. We were here before Native Americans came into existence. I'll get to that in a minute. He said, they are a distinct and inferior race of people, which all experience proves to be the greatest evil that afflicts a community. Okay. Now, a few weeks after British troops in the War of 1812 stunned and demoralized America by attacking Washington and setting the Capitol building and the White House ablaze on August 24th, 1814, the British turned their attention to the vital seaport of Baltimore. See, a lot of people don't know that now these were the colonial Marines who are going to attack. And his troops, Francis Scott Key's, his troops were attacked about 3 weeks before the attack on Fort McHenry. Okay, see, a lot of people don't know that the White House was set on fire during the War of 1812. The U.S. Capitol building and the White House were set on fire by the British. All right, this is not the American Revolutionary War. This is the War of 1812. Okay, now on September 13th, 1814, British warships commenced an attack on Fort McHenry, which protected the city's harbor. For 25 hours, bombs and rockets rained down on the fort, while Americans still wondering whether their newfound freedom would really be short-lived, awaited news of Baltimore's fate. Francis Scott Key was stuck aboard a British ship where he had been negotiating the release of a prisoner and barred by the officers of the HMS Tonnant, Tonnant, from leaving. He was barred from leaving the ship. He was there trying to negotiate the release of a prisoner. Okay. He could only watch the battle and hope for the best. So it's going to be the next morning after this battle. He writes the poem, The Defense of Fort McHenry. And there was a flag that was waving. And this is what he talks about when he talks about the Star-Spangled Banner. Okay. By the dawn's early light of the next day, Francis Scott Key saw the huge garrison flag, now on view at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, waving above Fort McHenry, and he realized that the Americans had survived the battle and stopped the enemy advance. The poem he wrote celebrated the Star-Spangled Banner as a symbol of the resilience and triumph of the United States. Ironically, Francis Scott Key was composing the line, or the land of the free, quote unquote. It is likely that black slaves were trying to reach British ships in Baltimore Harbor. They knew that they were far more likely to find freedom and liberty under the Union Jack than they were under the Star-Spangled Banner, under the British flag. Okay, because the British said, if you come fight for us, we'll set you free. Just like the British did during the American Revolutionary War. So on BET, they had a miniseries called The Book of Negroes. Okay, and this is what this was about. This is about those Negro loyalists to the British, because the British were the first to say, if you come fight for us, we'll set you free after this war is over. Okay. All right. So we see the response from Richard Sherman. We see you saw Shannon Sharp and Ray Lewis got into it earlier this week. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, in an article from TotalProSports.com on August 3rd, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar asked the question, where's the support from the white players in the NFL? Where's the support from the white players? Okay. On Tuesday, NBA legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar published an article on the Hollywood Reporter on their website. It not only called for Colin Kaepernick to keep protesting against police brutality and racial inequality, but it was also a call on fellow NFL players to stand with him as well. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said Americans have a favorite quote to demonstrate their dedication to free speech. I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. I disapprove of what you say, but what I will defend to the death of your right to say it. For this to be more than lip service, NFL superstars must defend athletes like Colin Kaepernick through boycotts of other means, through boycotts or other means of persuasion. Now, it's interesting how you have football players who will support the military and support the troops, things like this, even though they may not agree with the mission. But don't support Colin Kaepernick expressing his First Amendment right, and he's trying to save lives and he's fighting against the oppression of people of color. It's interesting how you had military personnel who came out against Colin Kaepernick, and they actually fought for his right to be able to do what he did. They actually fought for his First Amendment right. You can post your comments here on Facebook. We'll come to them in a few minutes here. How's everybody doing? Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. You see me in the documentary Black Friday, With Legacy When You Leave. You see me in Resurrecting Black Wall Street, The Blueprint. Actually, Elementary Genocide Part 3 comes out August 22nd. It comes out this month. I'm in that documentary from director Raheem Shabazz, and then Black Friday, the African Global Legacy, that comes out October 13th from director Rick Mathis. I'm in that film also. Okay, we just posted the link here. So how do you all like this type of information? How's everybody doing today? Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. Now, there were some other NFL players who joined in last season. Don't know what they're going to do this season because this season hasn't started yet, right? Don't know what they're going to do this season. There were some. Now, Colin Kaepernick has suspended his national anthem protests. And he already said that. He suspended his national anthem protests, okay? And, you know, that's understandable. His activism has still continued, though. His activism has still continued. We know he donated. He was part of a group that donated $60,000 to take supplies to Somalia. We know he donated his sneaker collection, or at least part of his sneaker collection to like the homeless. We know he donated a number of suits to men who were trying to who needed suits so they can apply for jobs, you know, get jobs, things like this. We know his activism has continued. Okay. And that's admirable. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is asking the question, well, where are the white players in the NFL? They need to support this also. Okay. Jovan on Facebook said people tend not to realize that the NFL is simply another gigantic corporate institution. They hold it as a symbol of whatever. Why? Okay. And you have players who really want to do something, right? But some of them are afraid. They're afraid of backlash. They're afraid of what happened, because all the players in the NFL are not as, I hope Colin Kaepernick is financially secure. All of them don't make Colin Kaepernick money. Okay, let's just be clear. All right, all of them don't have endorsements. All of them don't make Colin Kaepernick money. Okay, or what he used to make. But the people need to support the players. Okay. Where is our African national anthem? Somebody said. The Black national anthem is Lift Every Voice and Sing. We need to come up with a new one, because if you actually read the words to Lift Every Voice and Sing, that was actually a gospel hymn. You actually read the words to Lift Every Voice and Sing. Is we need a new one for 2017. Let me say it like that. Wendell said, Brother Kareem has a point. Gregory said Colin Kaepernick was not disruptive. He didn't interfere with the game. He wasn't loud or confrontational. He quietly refused to acknowledge the white supremacist national anthem, which is true. And that's his right also. That's what people have to understand. That was his right. It's what he was exercising his First Amendment right. Okay. I'm going to go back to this article about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but I want people to understand, when you deal with the national anthem being performed at the NFL games, and specifically NFL players standing up for it, right? That change, that only went into effect a few years ago, okay? The reason why is because the Department of Defense pays millions of dollars to sports teams, including teams in the NFL, for patriotic displays. Okay. Now, this information came out in November 2015. Washington Post had a report on this. November 4th, 2015, Washington Post. At least 50 teams were paid by Department of Defense for patriotic displays. At least 50 teams were paid by Department of Defense for patriotic display. Colin Kaepernick's protests. Okay. And AtlantaBlackStar.com had an article about this also from September 19th, 2016. Last year, after Colin Kaepernick's protests started, Defense Department paid sports teams $53 million of taxpayer dollars to play anthem stage over the top military tributes. Okay. So if we look very quickly at the article from the Washington Post, a lot of people don't understand the connection here. It says a government oversight report released Wednesday by Senators John McCain and Senator Jeff Flake offers new details about how the Department of Defense paid professional sports teams and sports leagues for patriotic displays honoring American soldiers. The report expands on one that became public last May, which would be May of 2014. And I'm sorry, last May, it'd be May of 2015. I'm sorry, the previous May of 2015, and resulting in changes to the National Defense Authorization Act for 2016, NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. Look that up. Prohibiting the expenditures and calling on leagues and teams to donate the money to organizations that support the military, veterans, and their families. Prohibiting the expenditures and calling on leagues and teams to donate the money to organizations that support the military, veterans, and their families. Okay. Senator John McCain and Jeff Flake said what we take issue with. Jeff Flake said what we take issue with is is the average fan thinking teams are doing this on behalf of the military. And they're not. Teams are being paid to do this. Sport at sports events, a lot of them are being paid to do this. NASCAR was the biggest recipient, getting $1.5 million for fiscal year 2015. NASCAR was the biggest recipient, getting $1.5 million for fiscal year 2015. Okay. If we look at the NFL, the report goes on to say at the time, both the Department of Defense and the NFL downplayed our assessment, characterizing it as an unfounded and inaccurate portrayal of the contracts. The report states a National Guard spokesman in particular assured American taxpayers that the contracts were for legitimate advertising activities that support recruiting efforts. And the NFL said our legislation painted a completely distorted picture of the relationship between NFL teams and our military. Okay, so they go on to talk about some of the money that the teams get. Okay, so this was a 145-page report. The 145-page report cites contributions to 18 NFL teams, 10 Major League Baseball teams, 8 NBA teams, 6 National Hockey League teams, 8 soccer teams, as well as NASCAR, Iron Dog, and the Indiana. Okay, all these teams were getting paid by the Department of Defense to have patriotic displays that included the national anthem. Okay, this is a 145-page report that came out in 2015 that exposed all of this. Okay, now this is not from Infowars.com. Okay, I just want people to understand this. This is Washington Post. All right, and I dealt with this in the presentation I did September 2016. Okay. And you know, all of my DVD lectures are at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can order my DVDs there if you want to. That presentation was called The Time We Have Been Waiting For Is Now. The Time We Have Been Waiting For Is Now. Colin Kaepernick, the national anthem, the Black Bank movement, and too many slave movies. The time we have been waiting for is now. And one of the things I talked about was how when you had these in 2016, when you had a lot of different occurrences that took place, historical information came out that dispelled lies. Okay. So I think it was July of 2016, when the Democratic National Committee had their national conference, the Democratic National Convention, and Michelle Obama spoke. She gave an address, and she talked about waking up in a house built by slaves. Well, that night, social media went crazy because you had white people on social media saying that the White House was not built by slaves. So then this caused a whole lot of articles to be written talking about how slave labor helped build the White House. And the bulk of the labor that not just built the White House, but the U.S. Capitol building and other buildings in Washington, D.C. were built by free African-American labor, the African-Americans who were free, and enslaved African people, because we were the ones with the skills. We were the ones who were the craftsmen. We were the ones who were masters of the trades. And not only that, but the White House Historical Associations on their website, the White House Historical Association on their website, they have a page dedicated to did slaves build the White House? And they break it down. Not only that, theatlantic.com had an article about Abigail Adams, who was the wife of John Adams, the second president, and he was the first president to live in the White House in Washington, D.C., because the first White House was in Philadelphia, because that's where the Capitol was at first, in Philadelphia. Then the Capitol was going to be moved to Washington, D.C. So the first president under the U.S. Constitution, not the Continental Congress or the Articles of the Confederation, but under the U.S. Constitution, the first president, George Washington, did not live at the White House in Washington, D.C. Okay. Abigail Adams, the wife of John Adams, the second president, talked about how she witnessed enslaved Africans who were building the White House, and how they were underfed and how they were poorly clothed and mistreated, things like this. She talked about this. Okay. You even had Bill O'Reilly on the O'Reilly Factor, who came out and cited the White House Historical Association and talked about how slave labor helped build the White House. So you had all these truths coming out, shutting down the lies. Okay. All right. So Benjamin Banneker was the surveyor, and he did the blueprint. He did the blueprint from memory. He had a photographic memory, and the layout of Washington, D.C. is based upon ancient African principles. Also, the layout of Washington, D.C. is based upon ancient African principles. The layout of Washington, D.C. is based upon ancient African principles. And if you read the book Egypt on the Potomac by Tony Browder, Egypt on the Potomac by Tony Browder. Tony Browder, who lives in the Washington, D.C. area, and I've interviewed Browder 6 times. This is one of the books we use in the online course also. Browder deals with how the layout of Washington, D.C. is based upon ancient African principles, and how it's basically a copy of the layout of ancient Egypt. Okay, the layout of Washington, D.C. Okay. So these are some of the things that we deal with in the course. You don't have to buy any of these books or anything like that to follow along in the course, but we use it for reference. All right. So, okay, how's everybody doing? So once again, for those just tuning in, hey, I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. You've maybe seen some of my broadcasts here. I'm the creator of and owner of the Facebook fan page here, the African History Network. So you'll see my posts and my videos here, things like this. And I also teach an online course called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay. How do you all like this type of information? How do you all like this type of information? Okay. We have Douglas. Douglas said, but look back at how proud people in the country used to be and work together to make it happen. Those lessons have been lost. What period of time are you talking about, Douglas? Because if you're talking about during the civil rights movement, only about 10% of African Americans were involved in the civil rights movement, actively involved. Carol said Muhammad Ali spoke out about the injustices in this country on his job. So did Paul Robeson. Who was blackballed as well. There is never a wrong time to speak up about injustice. Okay. All right. So we have the information here. Let me see. Post it again. We have the, okay. Okay. Here's the article from the Washington Post. I'm not sure if I gave that to you, that gave you that link. Article from the Washington Post, entitled "At least 50 teams were paid by Department of Defense for patriotic displays." At least 50 teams were paid by Department of Defense for patriotic displays. So I posted that link there for you. Okay. And in the article, once again, it said the 145-page report cites contributions to 18 NFL teams from the Department of Defense, 18 NFL teams, 10 Major League Baseball teams, 8 National Basketball Association teams, NBA, 6 National Hockey League teams, 8 soccer teams, as well as NASCAR, Iron Dog, and the Indiana University and Purdue University. The Atlanta Falcons, for instance, were the top recipients, getting $879,000 over the course of 4 years. Over the same period of time, for instance, course of 4 years, the New England Patriots received $700,000 and the Buffalo Bills received $650,000. So a lot of times you see these patriotic displays at the games and people are thinking, oh, they love America. And people stand up and sing the national anthem and put their hand over their heart, or they may do a Pledge of Allegiance, which was created by a white minister in 1892 named Francis Bellamy, who wanted a group of school children to recite his Pledge of Allegiance that he created at a 400th anniversary commemoration of Columbus so-called discovering the New World. So we know that Columbus lands in today what we call the Bahamas, October 12, 1492. He set sail on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, August 3rd, 1492, right? And 1892 was the 400th year anniversary of Columbus so-called discovering the New World, when he goes into Puerto Rico, Honduras, Panama, Cuba, Haiti, Jamaica, places like this, right? And Francis Bellamy wants these school children to recite his Pledge of Allegiance. And in the Pledge of Allegiance, you start out with your hand over your heart originally, and then at a certain point, your arm extends at a 45-degree angle. But this is going to be changed during World War II, because the salute that you did with your arm at a 45-degree angle looked very similar to a Nazi salute. So they're going to change it because of the Nazis in World War II, and you keep your hand over your heart during the whole time. But as Jackie Robinson said in his autobiography in 1972, Jackie Robinson, who broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball in 1947 with the Brooklyn Dodgers, and who served in World War II, served in the Army, served in World War II. Jackie Robinson said in his autobiography, I Never Had It Made, he said that he could neither stand for the national anthem or salute the flag anymore. Okay. And he basically talked about the racism of America, things like this. This is Jackie Robinson, who white people loved in after they, call him all type of N-words that first year, after all that, wished he died, and call him all type of names, threw stuff at him when he was on the field. Jackie Robinson said that he could not stand for the national anthem. He could not salute the flag, and he fought he served in the military. He talks about this in his 1972 autobiography, I Never Had It Made. Okay. All right. So how's everybody doing? Hey, share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. Hey, this is the type of information we deal with here. How you all like this type of information? This is the type of information we deal with in our online class also, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So I'll be doing another session of that online course this evening shortly. We normally do it 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Fridays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fridays. This is some of the type of information we deal with. We deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with history pretty much chronologically leading up to the transatlantic slave trade. Okay. When I approach the transatlantic slave trade, I deal with it differently than some people. I don't deal with it episodically. I don't deal with it as an episode in history. We have to deal with it chronologically. The transatlantic slave trade did not start. It did not start as an isolated event. It was the culmination of a sequence of historical events that lead up to a particular event happening. Okay. And anytime, if you see any of my presentations online, you see me speak, anything like that, right? Anytime I talk, I talk about how you don't have to believe a word that I say. Go do your own research. Proper documentation ends all conversation. And I usually talk about how information I may share with you may be outside the circumference of your own awareness. Just because you never heard it before does not mean it's not true. It just means you have to do some research to understand what I'm talking about. Okay. Some of the things we deal with in the course, we deal with what was the transatlantic slave trade, what were some of the events leading to the transatlantic slave trade happening. We deal with the 800-year occupation of Africa of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. This is some crucial information right here. This is Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. We have the information here on the thread of the broadcast, so you can register for the online course if you want to. It's a 12-hour, 6-week online course. This session is going to be 7 weeks. And we also have about 12 hours of bonus content. The course is only $40. You can watch it over and over again. Go back and watch the sessions over and over again. If you miss anything, as soon as you register, you can watch the first 4 sessions. Okay. Dr. David Imhotep wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. And he deals with the African presence in this country that we call the United States of America, going back at least 51,700 years. This is why it's so important. So when you hear me, you hear radio interviews I do, you hear my shows. I just interviewed Professor Kaba Kamene, formerly known as Booker T. Coleman. You see him in the Hidden Colors documentaries. I just interviewed him 2 weeks ago. He's one of my teachers. He talked about the African presence in this country also. African people were in this land we call the United States of America before Native Americans came into existence. This is why I have a problem with what I call the 1619 myth. This is why I have a problem with a lot of the slave movies. I have a problem with a lot of the slave TV shows, things like this, because they mistakenly teach our people that our history started in this country August 20th, 1619. Which is not true. Yes, the transatlantic slave trade happened. Yes, August 20th, 1619 happened. But African people were here in this land for tens of thousands of years before the transatlantic slave trade happened. Okay. So, and we were here before Native Americans came into existence also. So if you look at page 14 of his book, okay, page 14 of his book, he deals with evidence found by Dr. Albert Goodyear in Allendale County, South Carolina, in 2004, 13 years ago, which documents an African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years. Here's what they found. They found artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups dealing with DNA and genetics. They found linguistics, paintings, skulls, skeletons, structures, and tools. Okay. They found all this evidence thoroughly documenting an African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago, at least 51,700 years ago. Okay. Now, this is before Native Americans even come into existence. This is what people have to understand. This is why, because in the course, I deal with the TV show Underground. I deal with the problem with slave movies, things like this. And I'm not against a movie about slavery, but these movies are to the deletion and to the detriment of tens of thousands of years of African history in this country that predated them. And they perpetuate a 1619 myth that conditions our people to think that we are guests in this land and that our history started in this land conquered by Europeans, shackled in chains. And that's not true. This was our land stolen from us. We were here before Native Americans came into existence. Yes, the transatlantic slave trade happened, but it didn't happen exactly the way we've been taught that it happened. Now, if you look at this article from 2004 from ScienceDaily.com, This is about Dr. Albert Goodyear's discovery. It's called New Evidence Puts Man in North America 50,000 years ago. Because one of the things that we do in the online course that I teach is we deal with archaeological discoveries, because you have to deal with these things chronologically. Okay. And we deal with recent archaeological discoveries, like the ones that happened in June of 2017, the one that happened in April 26, 2017, about the mastodon skeleton, which is a prehistoric animal, precursor to the elephant, a mastodon skeleton found in San Diego that paleontologists are saying dates back at least 130,000 years ago. And they're saying that this mastodon skeleton was taken apart with stone tools by humans, which would then put a human presence in North America at least 130,000 years ago, which is over 100,000 years before modern archaeology tells us that humans were here in North America. Because the oldest human site that modern archaeology cites is the Clovis culture that dates back about 13,000 years ago in New Mexico. Well, if you have evidence of a human presence in North America at least 130,000 years ago, that blows the Clovis culture off the water, which is what Dr. David Imhotep has been saying. It's also what Dr. Albert Goodyear has been saying. So the question has to be asked, well, who were these people? Who were these people? Because we already know that African people were all over the planet. We go all over the planet. We know the Khoisan have the oldest DNA on the planet, who come from Southern Africa, and the Khoisan are the ancestors to the Ainu and the Twa, because the Khoisan were here in this land. And Dr. David Imhotep deals with this in his book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. This is one of the books we use in the course. You don't have to buy any of these books to be able to follow along in the course, anything like this, but I use this for reference to document what I'm talking about. Okay. And you can, and also we have a recommended reading list of books at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have a recommended reading list of books there, so you can check that out and get them as you can. I don't sell books, but get them from an African-American book dealer, get them from Amazon.com, things like this. Check with an African-American book dealer first. Okay. And then, check Amazon if you can't get them there. All right. So how do you all like this type of information? How do you all like this type of information? This is the type of information we deal with in our online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Kemet is one of the original names for what we call Egypt. Egypt is an Arabic word of Greek derivation. Okay. And Maafa is a Kiswahili term, which means the great disaster, which refers to the transatlantic slave trade. Okay. Okay. All right. So we have the information pinned there. If you need me to post a link again so you can register for the course, let me know. I'll post it again. Okay. If you need me to post the link again. All right. Now, if we look at this article from, and we teach the classes on Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we have a class starting up here shortly. Okay. And once you register, you'll be able to join us for the class. If we look at this article here from ScienceDaily.com, this is from 13 years ago. New evidence puts man in North America 50,000 years ago. New evidence puts man in North America 50,000 years ago. Okay. Can you all still see and hear me on Facebook? Radiocarbon tests of carbonized plant remains where artifacts were unearthed last May along the Savannah River in Allendale County, by University of South Carolina archaeologist Dr. Albert Goodyear, indicates that the sediments containing these artifacts are at least 50,000 years old, meaning that humans inhabited North America long before the last ice age, Okay. So this totally blows a a lot of the information that we've been taught, this totally blows a lot of that out the water. Okay. And month after month after month, there's new, okay, y'all can hear me and see me. Okay, good. Month after month after month after month, there's new archaeological information coming out, verifying, talking about an African presence in places long before we were taught that they were there. In June of 2017, you had the discovery that came out of Morocco. You had the discovery that came out of Morocco of they found skeletons of Homo sapiens, which are modern man, skeletons of Homo sapiens that date back 300,000 to 350,000 years ago. 300,000 to 350,000 years ago. Okay. Now, the oldest human fossils of modern man that they had date back 195,000 years ago in Ethiopia. Okay. Now, this is a modern man, Homo sapien. This is not Lucy, which was Australopithecus afarensis, which is an early form of humans that dates back 3.2 million years ago. Okay. This is not that. So the discovery in Morocco totally blows the discovery in Ethiopia out the water. So the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets. The deeper they dig, the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets. The more research they do, the older we get. Okay. The deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets. The more research they do, the older we get. And these archaeological discoveries are coming out all the time. Okay. This is why it's important so we deal with these type of archaeological discoveries in the class so we can better understand history. All right. So, we deal with a chronology of history. We deal with the 800-year occupation by Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who lose control of their last stronghold in Spain, January 2nd, 1492. But the Moors are going to introduce into Europe. They introduce cotton, alcohol, sugar, tobacco. They're going to introduce soap. They introduce spherical globes, almanacs, something called alchemy, which today we call chemistry. And they're going to introduce teachings. They're taking teachings coming from ancient Kemet, from ancient Egypt into Europe. And they're going to introduce teachings that are going to become the foundation of European secret societies, like the Knights Templar, created in during the Second Crusades, 1118 AD, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons. The teachings that the Moors take into Europe are going to form the foundation of these secret societies, their information also. The first university in Europe, University of Salamanca in Spain, built in 1285 AD by African Moors and Arabs. A lot of your early universities in Europe, University of Toledo, University of Bologna, University of Barcelona, things like this, they're going to be created to study the teachings that the Moors take into Europe. Okay, so we deal with information like this. We talk about Freemasonry some. We deal with some of the origins of Christianity also that takes elements from the periphery of African spiritual systems, especially those coming out of ancient Kemet. And we deal with Auset and Heru being born of a virgin birth, December 25th, to the Virgin Auset, who the Greeks call Isis, and how you have a copy of this African woman, Auset or Isis, in the DC Comics TV show that used to come on Saturday mornings. I used to watch when I was a kid in 1970s. The Shazam, they had the Shazam and Isis hour, and they had the TV show The Secrets of Isis. And they talk about how she gets her powers from ancient Egypt, and she has symbolism coming from ancient Egypt, right? Ancient Kemet. And growing up in the 70s, I didn't know they stole this from us. We just saw this white woman who, said it was powerful, things like this. So we believed it. But no, they stole this from ancient Africa. And then from the story of Auset and Heru and Asar, the father, and the concepts of the virgin birth, the immaculate conception, the adoration. Okay. these stories are ancient stories that go back to at least 3300 BC in ancient Nubia. And Nubia is the mother to ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt. You're going to have these stories told over and over and over again, adapted to various people's cultures over thousands of years. So from Set and Heru, you get the Black Madonna and Child, which was worshipped all throughout Europe. And they still have statues of the Black Madonna and Child throughout Europe today, like in Spain and Poland, things like this. Europeans were worshiping the Black Madonna and Child. It wasn't black because it was dirty, because they didn't clean it. It was black because they painted it black. I mean, it was black from the beginning. And then from that, you're going to get the decolorized version, which is Mary and Joseph, the decolorized version of the original. Okay, this is where this comes from. So to understand the transatlantic slave trade, you have to understand the chronology of history. We deal with some of the origins of racism. Dr. Francis Cress Wilson and Neely Fuller correctly taught us, if you do not understand European white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works, everything else, and I do mean everything else that you think that you understand, will totally confuse you. If you do not understand European white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you think that you understand will totally confuse you. Now, what's very interesting, and I warned people about Donald Trump for months before the November 8th election. You can go back and listen to the archives of my shows. I have almost 800 podcasted episodes, audio podcasts on my shows. Go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can listen to the podcast there. Okay. What was interesting is I warned people for months about Donald Trump. And what Donald Trump did was he tapped into the fears and the white supremacy of a lot of white people across this country, especially a lot of poor whites, and manipulated that and got them to vote for him. And now they're getting screwed by him. They're getting screwed by his budget. He's trying to take away health care from them. A lot of them. A lot of these white people didn't know that Obamacare and the Affordable Health Care Act were the same thing. When they found out, they started having all these protests saying, "Don't take away my health care." See, as long as Obama's name was on it, and they hated Obama because he's of African descent, they were cool. But when they found out they had it and they liked it, and it was called the Affordable Health Care Act, they said, "Oh, no, don't take that away. We want that." If you look at the first Friday of each month, the unemployment figures come out, right? So 209,000 jobs created. Under President Obama, you had 82 straight months of private sector job growth. Trump gives absolutely no credit to President Obama for that. When Trump took the oath of office January 20th, 2009, the unemployment rate was 4.5%. Prior to that, he kept saying, "Oh, this unemployment rate is fake. It's a fake unemployment rate. Oh, I've seen numbers of 42%. Oh, it's a fake unemployment rate. Oh, you have 92 million people unemployed." Then when the unemployment rate came out in February, he tried to claim that. And they say, "Wait a second, hold on. You just took the oath of office like 3 weeks ago, two and a half weeks ago. How do you claim this?" When the unemployment numbers came out under his tenure, now all of a sudden they're legitimate. When it was under President Obama, they were fake. Wait a second, it's the same Bureau of Labor Statistics that calculates the unemployment rate. They use the same methodology to calculate it. Now, look at what's happened. So today the numbers come out, and the unemployment rate is 4.3%. And it was 4.3% like a couple months ago, went up to 4.4%. It was down to 4.3%. When it was at 4.3% a couple months ago, Sean Spicer, who used to be the White House press secretary, said this is the lowest unemployment rate in 17 years. Well, wait a second. When Trump took the oath of office, it was 4.5%. So if you claim victory at 4.3%, how is it you don't give any credit to the black man who did the heavy lifting to get it down to 4.5%, so you can claim victory for it dropping 0.2 of a percentage point? That's white supremacy. See, that's why don't want to give any credit to President Obama whatsoever. 82 consecutive months of private sector job growth. Don't want to give any credit. So then he talks about, oh, well, he talked about the economy grew 2.6% in the first quarter of this year, or the either first or second quarter of this year, right? Well, under President Obama, you have 14 months where it grew 2.6% or higher. And you had 8 months where it grew 3% or higher. So it's easy. You can do things to increase the growth of the economy for a quarter. It's harder to do that for a year. So, but because of white supremacy, you get these idiots who just follow him and believe whatever he says, and they're getting screwed by him, and they're gonna get screwed royally by him. And when he, in person, I think he's gonna be forced to resign from office, because this is gonna be worse than Watergate. This thing is heating up. He's not gonna stop it. And I hope he fires Mueller, because that's gonna be his ass. If he fires Mueller, because you have Republicans telling him, hands off Mueller. You can't fire him. So I think he's stupid enough to do that. If he fires Mueller, it's over for him. Okay. All right. So you see, I follow politics also. I do. I did national radio up until April of this year, 5 days a week. And I still do radio. I do radio here in Detroit, 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Voice of Detroit, on Thursdays and Sundays. I did it yesterday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on the morning show here in Detroit. Wake Up with Steve Hood. Okay. All right. So we're going to start the online class shortly here. Kim, Candace, how you all doing? We just posted a link again. You can register for the online course because we're about to start it up. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So we deal with this type of information and a lot more in the class. We deal with the origins of the word America, the origins of the word Africa, the problem with slave movies. We deal with Christopher Columbus a lot, because you have to, I deal with the chronology of history, right? And to understand the existence of something, you first have to understand the pre-existence of existence. And Christopher Columbus is extremely important to understanding the transatlantic slave trade, because Columbus, on his 4 voyages, the uncovering of the so-called New World is going to open up the New World to other European nations coming in and fighting over these riches and fighting over this land. Okay, because they're trying to set up slave plantations, things like this. And one of the things they want to do is grow cotton. One of the things they want to do is grow cotton. Okay. And just give me a minute. Let me post a message here to the class. All right, hold on. Why is this? Okay, so one of the things they want to do was grow cotton as well. Okay, I mean, sorry, sugar. Sugar was first. Sugar was king before cotton was king. The reason why is because a lot of Moors, because Moors are going to introduce sugar to Europeans, and a lot of Europeans got hooked on sugar. Okay, so you're going to have sugarcane plantations that are set up. You're going to have sugarcane plantations that are going to be set up in Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, things like this. And to this day, one of the leading exports, one of the like top 3 exports out of Cuba is sugar. Okay, to this day, which goes back because Cuba was uncovered by Columbus in, I think it was 1492. I think it was in his first voyage. Uncovered by Columbus in 1492. Okay. All right. So let's do this here. So we have to deal with Columbus. And one of the things we have to understand about Columbus is Columbus never came to the land we call the United States of America. Columbus never came to the land we call the United States of America. Okay. The sugar came from India and was told and impacted in the Caribbean. Well, the Moors are going to introduce sugar into Europe. The Moors are going to introduce sugar into Europe. And one of the things that Columbus is looking for, because he's trying to prove that you can sell west and end up going east. Okay. One of the things he's looking for in addition to riches and gold and silver, things like this, and other spices, he's trying to find another source of sugar. So, but to grow sugar, you need a warmer climate. okay, to grow sugar, a warmer climate than you have in Europe. So they have this warmer climate in Jamaica, Haiti, Cuba, places like this. So they're going to set up sugarcane plantations, okay? And the sugarcane plantations are brutal. They're going to have sugarcane plantations with 1,000, 1,500 enslaved Africans on them. All right. They're going to have other plantations also, but sugar was king before cotton became king. Okay. All right. So we have the information here. We'll post a link again. You can register for this online course. I got to get out of here and get ready to teach it. Okay. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. It's a 12-hour, 6-week online course. All the sessions are recorded. Okay. We do the sessions live normally Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, running a little bit late this evening. If you miss anything, you can go back and watch it over and over again. And we also have about 12 hours of bonus content also. Okay. The course is only $40. So that helps support the African History Network, because all this stuff is a lot of work. And that helps pay for the online school, because that's not cheap either. But you can register for it, and I will see you in class. Okay. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you have been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Okay. Also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, you see I'm wearing the Black Friday shirt, the film Black Friday, What Legacy Will You Leave? I'm in that film. So we have the Black Friday documentaries at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And you got people like Dr. Claude Anderson, Dr. Umar Johnson, Professor Kaba Hiawatha Khamenei, Booker T. Coleman, Tony Browder. They're in here, Dr. Boyce Watkins, Chuck D from Public Enemy. A lot of people in the films, and they deal with strategies to recycle our $1.3 trillion economy, as well as strategies to pass on intergenerational wealth to our children also. Okay. And then we have the documentaries Elementary Genocide 1 and 2 from director Raheem Shabazz, Elementary Genocide 1 and 2 from director Raheem Shabazz. And these deal with the school to prison pipeline, educating African-American children, things like that. You have hip hop artist Killer Mike, Dr. Boyce Watkins, Dr. Umar Johnson. Just a few of the people in here is Dr. Steve Perry, Zaza Ali. She's in Elementary Genocide Part 2. Just a few of the things we have at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. If you like my information, all 35 of my DVD presentations are there as well at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay. All right. I got to get out of here, guys. Yo, yeah, these documentaries, I get these from the directors. I know the directors. I'm in some of these movies. I'm in Elementary Genocide Part 3, which comes out August 22nd, 2017, from director Raheem Shabazz. The new Black Friday movie comes out October 13th. I'm in that one. We filmed that one about 3 weekends ago in Atlanta at the top of Stone Mountain in Atlanta. Okay, I got to get out of here, get ready to teach this course. You can register for the course. See you all there. Remember, right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.